Assalamu alaikum. Today is the first class, the first episode in this series, inshallah. And the question for today is, what is Islam? Now, Islam encompasses many beliefs and many practices, but there are some core beliefs. There's some core, fundamental, basic beliefs, what makes Muslims Muslim. And the first of these core beliefs is the belief in an uncreated creator. Now, in a world where atheism is common, agnosticism is common, people disagree on whether God exists or not, disagree on if there are multiple gods or not, disagree on the characteristics of God, it's important to start with the fact that we believe absolutely that there's an uncreated creator. Now, are there reasonable reasons? Are there rational arguments? Is there a logic to all of this? Do we believe just based on blind faith? Because of course, Islam is a faith, and therefore Muslims believe without seeing that there is a creator. Not everything can be touched and felt and seen. Not everything is just based on what we see around us, and what's empirical, right? What we can get directly from science. But are there reasonable reasons? Are there rational arguments for the existence of God? Absolutely. And the logic goes something like this. The best evidence we have, according to scientists, is that the universe began to exist. The universe hasn't always been here. The universe is not infinite, but there's a starting point, right? And from then, the universe has been expanding, and we have evidence for that scientifically. So if the universe began to exist, right, the beginning of time, space, energy, and so on, and scientists call this the Big Bang. And you probably heard this, the Big Bang Theory. The beginning of time, space, and energy, the beginning of the universe, expansion, and everything that we can observe is in this universe, right? So logically, rationally, because we can't use science to ask the question of what came before the Big Bang or what caused the Big Bang, because that's outside of the realm of science, that's before the beginning of science. And I guess it's worth noting that we need to use a definition for science because it will come up multiple times in our series on the Islamic belief system. Science is our process of studying the universe. It's a human process, therefore it's not perfect. It's a discipline, it's a study. It's a human process and it has its function, but it also has a scope. And we'll talk more about this in the future, inshallah. But science has a scope. It's a philosophy of science. But scientists tell us that the universe began to exist, and then in the realm of logic and rationality, we can ask the question, what came before the Big Bang, or what initiated the Big Bang, or in other words, what created the universe? Logically, there are four options, right? Three to start off with. Either the universe, which hasn't always been here, which began to exist at one point, either the universe came from nothing, all of a sudden, the universe began, or number two, the universe created itself. Right, so nothing created itself. Or number three, it's created from something. Something, itself, or nothing. We'll start with these three. So can something come from nothing? Nothing comes from nothing. Something comes from something. But something does not come from nothing. Right? It just doesn't make sense. Scientifically, it doesn't make sense. Theologically, it doesn't make sense. Philosophically, it doesn't make sense. And I want to say that scientists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, agnostic, atheists, pretty much everyone agrees that things don't come out of nothing. There should be an explanation. That's how our brains are wired. That's the basis of science. So if we want to use a scientific approach, then we know that things don't just come out of nowhere. Right? There's a conservation of mass, energy, and so on, with exceptions, of course. The exception being, we'll come to it. So the universe and nothing in it could come from nothing. There has to be an explanation. But what if the universe created itself? That's a logical fallacy, as in, that's impossible. Logically, it makes no sense. For something to create itself, it means that it created and wasn't in existence at the same time. For something to create itself, it must have not been in existence and been in existence. It must have been there and not there at the same time. In logic, you can in terms of symbols, in terms of mathematical symbols, because logic is sometimes expressed in words, sometimes in symbols. That would be A is equal to negative A. Basically, something is equal to its opposite. And it goes against the first few basic core principles of logic. That something cannot be its opposite, right? Something cannot exist and not exist. Pick one, right? So the universe couldn't have created itself. Because you can't create something. You're either there to create, you're in existence, or you're not there, needing to be created, therefore you're not there. No, hopefully that makes sense. And I'm not certain about this, but my gut tells me the vast majority of people in the world believe that something is out there. Something created the universe, right? Which is number 3. We'll come to it. In fact, I know for a fact that even agnostics and atheists, and the difference being agnostics are like, you know what? Maybe there's something out there we don't know. Oh, sorry. Maybe there's a creator we don't know. Or it's not relevant to my life. Or I'm not sure. Or I will study it further. Or even if there is a creator, not that relevant. Something along those lines. Versus an atheist, it's a little bit more concrete. An atheist is putting forth the argument that we believe, or that person believes, that there is no creator. And assuming that there's evidence for that, that there's rational arguments for that, that the best arguments point that God doesn't exist, therefore that person believes it. So that's the difference between an atheist and agnostic, essentially. But atheists and agnostics, many of them, would still say that something could have been out there, or something could have created the universe, we just don't know, or something along those lines, right? Because in fact, Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous, Stephen Hawking, Richard Dawkins is probably the most famous of the neo-atheists. There's this movement in the last however many decades, that brought atheism to the forefront. Probably the most famous popularizer of the atheist movement, but Stephen Hawking, who passed away about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, relatively recently, strong atheist, but he wrote in his book that he believes that there's a sea of fluctuating energy that created the universe. Basically, something created the universe. There's something there, but of course, he doesn't believe that it was God. And usually, neo-atheists are referring to the Christian view on God, but that's another point. We'll get to that, inshallah. What I'm trying to say is that many people would agree that something created the universe. It makes sense. But when speaking to a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew, they would say, you're making too many assumptions. You're saying Allah or Jesus or this or that, a merciful being, all-powerful, all-knowing. It's like, that's too many assumptions. It's not scientific to assume that we know and we have this relationship with this creator who speaks to us, who writes to us, who sends messengers, etc., etc. It's not scientific, it's a lot logical. You're making up stories, right? And it says this in the Quran. They're making up, that people claim that prophets were making up stories, or that people that speak about God are making up stories. The religion is all a bunch of stories. And this is, we see this in modern times very commonly. But they're saying that you're making up all these stories, let's be logical. Fine. So logically, either the universe came from nothing, created itself, or came from something. Something is obviously the most logical option, or really the only logical option. Now, let's focus on that something. Something created the universe. Again, that something can be one of two options. Again, logically, there are two options for something created the universe. Either that something was itself created, just like the universe, and therefore, we can ask the questions again. It's repeated. That something, let's say this is the universe, this is another universe, or a rock, or some being, or something. It doesn't even matter. Something that created the universe. Well, what created it, right? Did it come from nothing? Did it create itself? Same system of logic would apply. Same question, same line of question. And that can go on to infinity. You can also say, what created the something that created the something that created something that created the universe? And I hope this isn't getting too confusing. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm saying that in a world where agnosticism and atheism are on the rise, and people are regularly asking questions like, how do you know God exists? So you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you pray, you go to church, you're Muslim, you fast. Oh, that's great. Your parents are from where? From Pakistan, Egypt. Oh, you're born in the US. Oh, but you're born Muslim. Okay. Or you converted. Oh, so you believe that there's this being out there. You believe in this God. Oh, you were taught this. They're implying that it was that it's false, that it's made up stories, that it's brainwashing, indoctrination, that it doesn't work or doesn't get past any type of critical thinking. That it's just blind belief, blind faith, and as Muslims believe in faith, but not blind faith. There are good reasons to believe what we believe. And the Quran has plenty of uses of logic and rhetoric and appeals to the universe and to think within ourselves and to look at, principles in nature, a whole list of things. And we'll come to all this, inshallah. The universe encourages us to use our minds. Do they not think? Do they not ponder? Do they not reflect? أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Encourages us to use our minds to come to the conclusion that there is one creator of the universe, and so on and so forth. But anyway, so something created the universe. Either that something was itself created, like the universe, or it was something uncreated. So one or two options. Everything is either created or uncreated. Right? Can it be something created? Well, the problem would be that we would say, okay, well, what created that? And what created that? And it can go on to forever, to infinity. It can go on to infinity, theoretically, but it can't. Because the universe exists. Listen to this. Let's say I was playing football or playing soccer, and some of you call soccer football, but regardless, you're playing some kind of sport, and before you can kick the ball, throw the ball, or shoot the ball, you have to ask permission from the captain of the team. And the captain's like, hold on, I gotta ask the coach, who says I gotta ask the manager, who says I gotta ask the who knows what. If that goes on to infinity, that process, if it goes on forever, and they keep having to ask for permission, would you ever get to shoot? Would you ever get to kick the ball? Would you ever get to throw the football? You would not be able to. The fact that you threw the ball or kicked the ball or so on means somebody at one point gave you permission, said do it, or says okay, right? Someone's like, bet, go for it. So there is a start. It's an analogy, right? You throwing the football or kicking the football, the analogy of that is that the universe exists. We know the universe exists. The universe exists. Therefore, there must have been an uncreated creator. There must have been a start. Somebody must have said, go. Kun fayakun. Someone said, be. Order the universe into existence. There has to be a start, an uncreated creator. You could be like, oh, really? You think you're so smart? Well, who created Allah or who created God? Although we haven't really used the word Allah yet, and we're going to talk about Allah and all of his attributes and sifats, all of his characteristics and what it means that we believe in God. We're just not there yet in this process. But yeah, people imply that there are a lot of assumptions involved, but really it's logical. That something created the universe. Look around, there's a universe clearly. Something created it. That something couldn't have been created itself. There has to be an uncreated creator of the universe, or else it would go on to infinity. But the universe exists. There has to be a start. There has to be a being that says go, that says start, that says kun, that creates all that's in existence. That's an uncreated creator. And that's it for episode 1. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me, message me, SMS me. Do what you need to do. Inshallah, comments, questions, concerns. Inshallah, I'll do my best to be approachable. And I would love to answer your questions. I'd love to discuss any of these things, whether you're Muslim, not Muslim, whether you agree or disagree. If you've heard counter arguments, if you've heard better arguments, let's do it. It doesn't matter where you come from and what you believe, inshallah, we can definitely discuss. So looking forward to your messages and your concerns and your feedback, inshallah. And I'll see you guys very soon, inshallah, for episode number 2. Assalamu alaikum.